Welcome to the Deep Dive. If you need a shortcut to being genuinely well-informed, you have come to the right place. We take the source material, the dense legal filings, the articles, the research, and we distill it all down.
We get to the nuggets of knowledge and the surprising insights that really matter.
And today we are taking aim at a subject you really might not expect to find in a major antitrust battle.
Yeah, we're talking about the world of bow hunting and archery equipment. It's a $1.2 billion industry.
Exactly. I mean, forget that image of silent solitude in the woods. This industry is facing a massive class action lawsuit. It's called Janochoski v. Hoyt Archery, Inc. et al., and it was filed in July 2025 in Minnesota.
So our mission today is to really get into the core claims of this lawsuit. Essentially, the plaintiffs are alleging that all the major players in the archery market, from the manufacturers right down to the big retailers, have been, well, working together to artificially inflate prices for years.
And the mechanism they allegedly used is really the focus of our dive. It's a seemingly innocent business practice called minimum advertised price, MAP policies.
Right, but the legal argument here, and this is the important part, is that they allegedly weaponized this tool. They took it from a standard, a permissible manufacturer policy and turned it into an illegal industry-wide agreement.
This is a textbook antitrust lawsuit. It's filed under the Federal Sherman Act.
And we are talking about allegations of a wide-ranging coordinated conspiracy. The plaintiffs claim it goes all the way back to January 1st, 2014, and it could even be continuing today.
And we're not talking about small-time operations here either. The list of defendants. It reads like a who's who of the archery world.
It really does. You've got the trade group at the very center of it all, the Archery Trade Association, the ATA, and huge manufacturers like Hoyt Archery and Matthews Archery.
And then, crucially, the complaint also targets the downstream retailers and distributors.
Yeah.
The ones you would actually know.
Yeah, companies like Bass Pro Shops, Cabela's, Dick's Sporting Goods, and the big distributor, Kinsey's Outdoors. So what's alleged here is a cartel that, if it's true, coordinated prices across thousands of products. I mean, it touched every single level of the supply chain.
Okay, let's unpack this. Before we get into all the legal weeds, let's just, frame the context for you. Why was there so much pressure to conspire in the first place? We have to look at the market.
The archery market it's substantial. When we say archery products, we mean everything.
Oh, everything.
The actual bows, compound or recurve, the arrows, the broadheads, targets, all the accessories. The U.S. retail market for just this gear was valued at around $1.2 billion by 2023.
And this is not a cheap hobby to get into or maintain. If you look at the consumer impact that's cited in the complaint, the good bow can easily run you hundreds, maybe even over $1,000.
Oh, easily. And a standard six-pack of hunting arrows, you're looking at over $100.
And specialty targets. I mean, those can range from $50 to hundreds of dollars depending on what you're doing.
It's high-cost equipment, which immediately highlights why competition is so important. But what's really fascinating is the profit structure. The lawsuit details.
What does it say?
The standard retail profit margins are allegedly about 27% on the bows themselves, and then almost 40% on all the other accessories.
Wow. That 40% margin on arrows and accessories, I mean, that is a massive incentive for retailers to prevent any kind of price war, right?
Absolutely. If you're making that much on consumables, you are going to want to protect that price floor at all costs.
Which brings us squarely to the main tool here, MAP policies.
So traditionally, a minimum advertised price policy is just a contract between a single manufacturer and a retailer. It stipulates the lowest price the retailer can publicly advertise the product for.
Right, and a manufacturer does this to protect their brand value, to keep their high-end gear from looking cheap. And doing that unilaterally as one manufacturer is generally illegal.
But here is the central allegation. This is the aha moment that makes this case so significant. The ATA allegedly facilitated a horizontal agreement.
Explain what that means.
So a vertical agreement is between a manufacturer and a retailer up and down the supply chain. A horizontal agreement is between direct competitors, like manufacturer A and manufacturer B, or retailer C and retailer D.
So rivals.
Rivals, exactly. The lawsuit alleges that manufacturers, distributors, and major competing retailers all collectively agreed to implement and enforce these MAT policies across the entire industry. That coordinated action, if you can prove it, moves the whole thing into a category of antitrust violation known as per se illegality.
That's such a powerful distinction. So this isn't just about a few companies being stripped with their brand. This is alleging that companies that should be fierce competitors actually created a a secret collective structure to get rid of competition.
And we know why coordination was supposedly necessary. I mean, if one retailer decides to honor a MAP policy all on their own, they immediately risk being undercut by a competitor who just ignores it.
They'll lose all their business.
Right. We have a great quote from a former ATA board director, Ben Summers, who spelled it out. He said, "If I'm really good at keeping my products at the MAP price, and I have a competitor who isn't keeping an MAP policy, and their product costs less than mine, I can lose lots of sales."
That just makes perfect business sense. It's a classic collective action problem. Unless everyone agrees to the price floor, the first retailer to drop their prices is going to win all the market share.
But if everyone sticks to the agreement,
Everyone protects those huge profit margins.
and historically, the sources show that the industry knew this was really dangerous legal territory. There's an article from 2010 that mentioned that while retailers desperately wanted the ATA to step in and enforce MAPs for everyone,
They couldn't, right?
the association internally recognized that doing that kind of industry-wide enforcement would exceed the ATA's authority. They knew it would attract antitrust scrutiny.
That recognition of risk is so key because it sets the stage for the alleged conspiracy to really ramp up. Here's where it gets really interesting because the sources let us trace the shift to a very specific turning point, the year 2014.
That year, the industry's dynamics just fundamentally changed. The source material notes the strategic inclusion of the two largest retailers in the country, Bays Pro Shops and Cabela's, onto the ATA board of directors.
So you're putting the biggest players, the ones who stood to gain the most from high prices, right at the heart of the trade association.
Exactly. And the rhetoric surrounding this shift is, well, it's astonishing. The CEO of the ATA at the time, Jay McAnich, he referred to Bass Pro and Cabela's in an email as his cohorts in crime.
He actually wrote that, cohorts in crime.
He did. And added they were serious about contributing to the success of the archery and bow hunting industry. I mean, calling your business partners cohorts in crime is an incredible thing to find in a legal filing. That is not subtle. It suggests a certain confidence in their coordination, doesn't it?
It suggests a complete alignment of interests. And right after they joined, the ATA allegedly began its organized campaign, moving from these cautious internal warnings to active coordination to raise prices.
And they used multiple very explicit tools to help set up this horizontal agreement.
Let's list those coordination tools because they really show the infrastructure of the alleged cartel. First, the trade shows themselves became central.
Right. At the January 10, 2015 meeting, you had representatives from manufacturers, distributors, retailers, about 60 people, and they met specifically to review a sample MAP policy. The ATA was reportedly right there, helping companies use this sample as a starting point.
And second, the internal rhetoric was just so explicit about their goal to kill price competition.
They cited a communication from CEO McAnich in late 2014, which has since been deleted. It was titled, MAP, United We Stand, Divided We Fall.
United we stand, divided we fall. I mean, that's basically saying if we compete, we lose profits. If we stick together on prices, we all win.
And the ATA's stated goals for these coordinated MAPs were explicit. They wanted to level the playing field for all retailers and, quote, eliminate the race to the bottom that would occur if retailers endlessly competed to reduce prices.
In a competitive market, that race to the bottom is what consumers rely on. It's called price competition.
When a group's stated goal is to eliminate that race, I mean, that's when antitrust alarms just start blaring. It really underscores that the pressure to keep those 40% margins was just too great to resist, even with the legal risks.
Which brings us to the next big challenge. How do you actually enforce a massive agreement like this? Across thousands of retailers and manufacturers, this wasn't just some soft encouragement, it was allegedly militant collective action.
We see this so clearly in the ATA's own communications. They compared MAP enforcement to hunting coyotes, stressing that the season never ends and the challenge never dies.
Hunting coyotes, wow.
And they actively called for good communications between manufacturers, distributors, and retailers, and the need for ATA members to work together as much as possible.
And that call for communication, it translated into really rigid enforcement through the supply chain. The distributors were critical choke points here.
For instance, Kinsey's Outdoors, a major distributor, allegedly told manufacturers that they would restrict sales to any violators. They kept a do not sell list for companies that drop below the MAP prices.
And it worked both ways. The sources allege that retailers, including the big box stores, would participate by withholding their business or threatening to from any manufacturers who didn't enforce the MAPs on their competitors.
It's pressure from all sides. It forces compliance throughout the entire network.
What's so fascinating and very modern is the role technology played in making all this alleged collusion so effective. It must be so hard to monitor prices manually across thousands of websites.
But the ATA allegedly made it easy. They didn't just ask members to police each other, they provided the actual infrastructure. They launched a login-restricted MAP resource library, and they secured special discounts for their manufacturer members to use outside price monitoring firms. These are companies like TrackStreet and New Intel, and their entire job is to automatically track pricing violations all over the internet.
So the ATA was basically subsidizing the technology needed for competitors to monitor and police their own agreement. It's what kept the cartel stable.
And they created a space for competitors to talk about it. In 2017, the ATA launched ATA Connect, which was a members-only online forum.
A safe space.
They literally called it a safe, confidential space for members to network and solve industry challenges. And it explicitly allowed discussions of hot topics like MAP policies and profit margins away from public view and, well, you could argue away from immediate regulatory scrutiny.
Now we get to what is maybe the final critical blow for the consumer, because the lawsuit makes a key distinction that changes the legal dynamic completely.
This is a crucial difference.
They allege that many of these policies, even though they were labeled minimum advertised price, MAP, were actually minimum retail price, MRP policies.
Which is a whole different ballgame. MAP dictates what you can advertise. But MRP, or resale price maintenance, that dictates the actual price you can sell the product for at the register. If you restrict the actual selling price, you eliminate price competition entirely.
Wait, so it wasn't just don't put a lower price in your ad. It was manufacturers allegedly saying, we won't even sell to you if you dare to drop the actual price tag.
That's the allegation. One retailer quoted in the complaint said the manufacturers essentially told them, you can sell for whatever you want, but I don't have to sell my product to you if you choose to do so.
And in a specific market like high-end archery gear, being cut off from a major manufacturer is a death sentence for a retailer.
A total death sentence. So the threat of withholding supply, backed up by technology that instantly flags price drops, created this incredibly powerful enforcement mechanism. It was for a resale price maintenance scheme, all allegedly coordinated horizontally by the ATA.
And the financial toll on the consumer is, allegedly, pretty clear. First, these policies reduced any incentive for retailers to compete on price, because they couldn't advertise lower prices to attract customers anyway.
And second, by setting that artificially high price floor, they ensured that the actual prices people paid were systematically higher than they would be in a truly competitive market.
The sources confirm that consumers felt this, even if they didn't know the mechanics behind it.
Right. Archery equipment prices were widely talked about in online forums as obscene, out of touch, and insane. This wasn't seen as fair market pricing. It was perceived as predatory.
So to wrap this up, the lawsuit suggests that by around 2021, the defendants knew they were drawing too much attention.
It seems like it. The lawsuit alleges that the ATA began scrubbing its public website of potentially problematic references to its central role in coordinating all these pricing policies.
But despite those attempts to erase the paper trail, the legal standing for this case remains pretty broad.
Very broad. The class action is looking to represent all individuals and entities in the U.S. that directly bought archery products from an ATA member since that key date of January 4, 2014. That is a massive group of consumers who allegedly paid artificially high prices.
So what does this all mean?
Well, the lawsuit contends that this price-fixing agreement is still going on right now, and that it results in consumers paying artificially high prices for their gear. Whether you're buying a new Matthews bow or just a six-pack of hunting arrows. It's a really compelling case about how a seemingly legitimate business practice
MAP policy
can allegedly be transformed into the engine of an illegal horizontal conspiracy, all because competitors used a trade association to enforce it collectively.
It really forces you to rethink how these specialized markets operate.
It does. And it leaves us with a provocative thought. Given how hard it's historically been for one company to enforce its own pricing policy, how does the alleged coordinated use of trade associations, specialized monitoring software like TrackStreet, and these closed-door online forums fundamentally change the definition of competition? If the tools for collusion are now cheap and easily available to trade groups, does it make price fixing just that much easier to pull off? That's something for you to mull over the next time you look at the price tag on a new piece of high-end gear.
We'll leave you with that thought. Thanks for joining us for the deep dive.